Okay.
Everyone, one more minute to check in. It's always the 2 o'clock like notification, and then you're like, scrambling from one meeting to the next.
I think it's a great way to spend a Friday afternoon.
I think it's like
Sounds fun to me.
Get your learn on. Okay, so LinkedIn just reminded me that I put up a post on the CMA. I'm like very, very timely of you, LinkedIn. I guess we can kick this bad boy off. All right, so here we go. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today to I think this is our first Friday edition of the Channel Marketing Academy chat. It's November already, can you guys believe it? So what does November usually mean? Budgeting and planning for the upcoming year. So we thought it was very apropos to bring on some of our favorite budgeters and planners and get them to share with us how they do it, what are some of the tips, tricks, and please put questions in the chat if you have any about it, if you're in the midst of doing it yourself right now. So a couple of housekeeping things before we start. A big thank you to the Partner Marketing Group for sponsoring this chat this month. They help us keep the lights on here. We are here just to share information with you guys. So just to keep our website running and stuff, thank you very much for that. Ask questions. I know I harp on this every single month, but I keep on saying it. You can have a side chat going. Please, sharing is caring. If you have any ideas too, please put them in there. We are here. This is a safe space. And Michelle and Anya will be monitoring the chat because sometimes doing two things at once is hard. So if I miss a question, it's not because I'm doing it on purpose. It's because I'm doing two things at once, and they'll let me know to answer the question. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our three awesome guests today. And I will start with you, Amy. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Amy Spencer. I'm the Vice President of U.S. Marketing for HSO. We're a global systems integrator that is solely focused on Microsoft solutions. So we only sell and implement the Microsoft stack. So Dynamics, ERP and CRM, as well as Power Platform, data and AI, the whole stack.
Very cool. So yeah, she's been in the industry ecosystem for a while. So if you want to know about all the different names in the Microsoft, she could probably name them for you. And probably has forgotten as well a couple over the years.
It would be a fun quiz. And for context, I have been a one-person marketing department, and now I lead a team of 9 people in the U.S.
Cool. Khaled, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. My name is Khaled Nasra. I'm the managing director at Enki Consulting, and I'm also the head of marketing at Binary Stream. We're an ISV that's been around for about 25 years now, worked with on-premise solutions, migrated to BC, to F&O, and even managed the team through a Microsoft acquisition. So happy to chat about this and talk all about having no budget to having way too much budget and then going back to no budget.
You know, having too much, I've never had problems spending money. I don't know.
I've never had that problem. Never had too much
been an issue. I don't like frivolously spending money, but spending money has never been my problem. So I'll like to hear about all of those conundrums. Last but definitely not least, Lee, why don't you tell us a bit about you?
Hi, everybody. My name is Lee Sharp, and I am the Director of Marketing Communications for Unified AR. We are a cloud-based technology provider for accounts receivable and payment acceptance technology. We focus primarily in the wholesale distribution and manufacturing industries. We have a number of endorsements there from trade associations, other technology partners, et cetera. And we integrate to ERPs and CRMs to just really further streamline and help people transform their accounts receivable processes. And I have been a one-man marketing department. I've actually done startups, and I've worked with some very large multinational corporations before, but I've never had too much marketing budget.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing about it. And also that you seem to have everything, lots of different industries and lots of different ways to parse it out. So interesting to hear on how you manage all those different streams. So let's kick this off. Chicken and the egg, what comes first? Is it your planning or your budget? Lee, how about what do you guys do at your company?
Well, I typically work with the plan first, and that's really the way I enjoy it, and I like to do it. I enjoy putting together the calendar, and then building in my my more strategic level plans, based on revenue goals, projections, et cetera. So I literally take a very large, printed out calendar, and then I plug in all of my knowns, conferences, industry meetings, et cetera, and then build campaigns around those. And then I start backfilling with webinars, podcasts like this, et cetera, and then build pre and post promotional campaigns around those.
I think that's good. You have your flagships, put in your big rocks first, and then kind of look around that, because those events are planned a year in advance. You can't be like, can you move those out by a week? And that would really make it better for me. So I think that's a good insight there. Amy, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you guys do it? Are you a chicken or are you an egg? Are you a planner or a budgeter?
Both. They almost happen simultaneously, but definitely the plan, right? You can't build a budget unless you know what type of business plan your marketing is trying to support. So we actually start our planning in August for the coming calendar year. And it starts with, and we're a high growth company. So we establish how much executive leadership will establish how much we want to grow. And then we discuss how we're going to grow it. Are we going to add new service lines? Or are we going to maybe pursue new verticals? And then from there, we build a plan to support that. And we ask ourselves, what needs to be true in order for us to achieve 20% growth in an area? What kind of talent do we need to hire? What type of resources do we need? And then what kind of marketing plan and budget to support that? So we simultaneously do a bottom up and a top down approach, because I know over the last few years that we want our budget to be a certain percentage of projected revenue. So in my mind, okay, well, we want to grow, say 20% next year. So I know what that revenue target's going to be. So I know what percentage of my budget, where I need my budget to fall in. And then somehow it just all kinds of comes together.
Yeah.
Magically. It just does.
Just like that.
Yeah.
No, but I think we forget sometimes that we have to do some math, and every month I'll say this, but marketing is a science and an art. You need to do the math behind it to know exactly how many leads have to come in and where are you going to get them from in order to do it. So I think sometimes we might get caught up in the fun part of it. Like, don't get me wrong, I love me a calendar and placing everything, but you have to be able to work backwards too, and go back to, okay, does this get us to our number, or okay, how are we going to shift this afterwards? So, and I imagine if you start in August, is because there's a couple iterations between now and your
yeah, and some negotiation in between, right? Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Tanya. This goes back to God rest his soul, Mac McIntosh. He taught this years ago. I mean, probably decades ago. Do the math, do the work back calculator. So what's our revenue goal? What's our average deal size? And then figure out how many wins we need, and then how many opportunities we need based on our win rate. And you back into the numbers and take a very mathematical approach to it, right? So at the beginning of the year, all our marketers on our team know exactly how much revenue that we need to generate, and approximately, now this is where it's not exact science, right? Approximately how many wins we need to have to get there.
Yeah.
And then every marketer on our team is aligned to goals. So that way we make sure we have enough support to achieve what we want to accomplish.
I think it's planning is all of those things. It's not just, okay, when are we launching something? It's everything else that goes along with it. So what does your planning workflow look like, and how much time and effort goes into it? So Amy, we know you start really early.
Yep.
Khaled, what does your timeline look like?
Yeah, so we do start in November. We actually have a fiscal year start in February. So a bit fortunate there.
You have a
The 1
buffer.
month offset. But we give ourselves about 3 months to work through everything. We start out with goals. So we start out with 5 big goals that the company wants to achieve. One of them is a revenue goal, one of them is a retention, and then market expansion, and 2 that are more like internal goals, one around culture and one around hiring. And those goals allow us to break down into objectives, into plans and actions. And of course, you have to work around the things that Lee mentioned, where you know exactly what campaigns you're setting up, that are predetermined stuff, industry events, things like that, audit time, whatever, cyclical stuff. And then you just kind of fill in the gaps and see what your resourcing needs are as well. Because you might have to hire to meet your plans. You might want to go with outside, like external help, or need to add in new partners or new workloads. Whatever you need to do, you kind of have to go through that. But usually we try to involve everyone in the team. And I think that's a really important thing for marketing, is try not to plan in isolation. That's kind of a recipe for failure, I think. So if you can involve your team who's actually executing, but then also look sideways and involve cross-functional departments, whether it is product or sales, there's nothing worse than launching a product and then realizing it's not ready yet. So you want to talk to everyone. Yeah.
I don't know that I think we forget about the resources part. Like, oh, sometimes we build out this really cool calendar with lots of activities, and then you're right, we have to step back and go, so who's going to do all this stuff now, and do we have the time? And what is a lead time for an ebook, or what is a lead time to get a booth created and stuff? So that's super mindful that we should keep into account. And Lee, what does it look like for you?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. So, part of, at least for me anyway, part of creating this really robust plan, oftentimes we don't get to implement all of the campaigns that we've actually planned, or, unforeseen things have happened, and et cetera. And so, as it turns out, maybe one campaign's not performing as well as you had hoped, or maybe priorities change throughout the year, or maybe you roll out a new product that you weren't really anticipating. Having these really robust plans, has really helped me at times just insert, drop it in and plug it in and run with it, so I think that's part of it. But what was your specific question about the next step for me?
It was around how long do you usually take to plan your budget and stuff. But yes, I think I didn't want to stop you from talking about it, because I think it's so true that sometimes something we think is going to work really well totally falls flat, and we have to pivot quickly, or halfway through the year this isn't going to be live, so we need to have a gap in there. So building in that wiggle room is critical to okay, what can we do if this doesn't happen? And sometimes we don't know that far in advance. So back to planning though,
Yeah,
we
sure.
don't plan to fail. We plan to execute everything, but if it happens, it happens. How long in advance do you start looking at your upcoming calendar?
I'm always planning. A lot of what we do is trade show participation, either exhibition and or attending. So, those are like static things that are always on my calendar that I know we're going to be doing. So it's always ongoing. But as far as at the detailed level and with budgeting, we usually start just before Q3, so end of Q2.
Okay. All right, so I guess I'm more the 1 month, like the 1 quarter beforehand. So I'm glad to see people. That's why they're telling us about it, and I'm just asking the questions. They're planning 6 months and ahead. I think we're there. Campaigns are becoming more complex and more detailed, and more people are becoming involved in them, especially from a trade show, all the other pieces that go into it. So I think 6 months is a good baseline now, just to kind of do your half year in advance kind of thing. So how do you guys talked a bit about what percent, like how you budget or what percentage. So do you have, Amy, I think you said around 20% is where you start for your annual gross revenue?
I wish. Okay, brace yourself. Because I always wanted this answer earlier in my career and could get it from no one.
Yeah.
Brace yourself. It's 2% of projected revenue. Some people think it's like 5 or 6%. It's 2%. Now, when you're a company like HSO that does, $450 million a year, that's a lot of money. But for a smaller company, it's not. So for marketing globally, it's 2%. And then global marketing, corporate marketing needs money to court, the analyst firms and to run high level campaigns and that type of thing, support all our systems. So in the past, I had a budget for CRM or marketing apps and all that stuff. Luckily, corporate handles all that, but they shave it off the top. And then I'm allocated about 1.6 to 1.8% of projected revenue in the US because I'm in charge of US field marketing. I have peers in the UK and France and Canada. So since I'm responsible for US marketing, I get about 1.6 to 1.8% of our projected revenue. And that includes salaries. So it's a heavy responsibility because I take that number, I got to figure out salary increases and how much bonus we may pay out. And we have got a budget for the maximum, assuming everyone hits their targets 100%. And then that's what I get left over for campaigns. And so if I want to hire in the company in the coming year, I have to balance that out. Like the more people I hire, the more talent I have, the less I have to run campaigns. So I think that's been the biggest challenge for me in growing my career, is learning how to balance that responsibility. And because, for me, I think this is the case for a lot of marketers, is like we need more resources. We need a bigger team. If you want us to do X, then we need more people to do it. And you get what you get, so you have to make it work. Yeah.
You learn to be very creative with and scrappy and all of the above.
And that's when I'm kind of digressing. Well, I'm going on a tangent, but it's related. That's where contractors come in handy, like the partner marketing group or contractors. So because you can use MDF to pay them if they invoice you, right? You get MDF, you can use your MDF towards your invoices, but you typically can't use MDF for salaries. So, we do have quite a few external resources we lean on as well, not just, FTEs.
And that is definitely the tip of the day. Squeeze your MDF money and your co-op funds dry. Use them as much as you can. That's budget, but at least that's sometimes a little bit of gravy you need, or that extra little bit of help you need. So don't forget about those contractors that you can kind of sneak into to fill your spots. And what about you, Khaled? What does your percentage look like, or are you able to share? Or?
Yeah. I would say we're probably 6 or 7%. We're not at the same scale in terms of overall revenue as HSO by any stretch. But that also includes salary. Without the salary, it's probably closer to like 2% that is allocated for everything. And we actually don't do a lot of like ad spend or money that's going to directly sponsor campaigns. A lot of it goes towards like conferences. Flights come out of the marketing budget. don't know how to explain that, but they do for everyone. And so you end up carrying like kind of a hybrid. And so I think the MDF tip is excellent because you do have to think creatively about how to reallocate some of the budget, figure out how you can do a lot more with less. That was definitely the theme for many companies, I think, last year, and probably continues to be the theme for marketers everywhere. And so if you can do a lot of things for free, that's usually my tip for my team is let's try to do the thing that does happen for free. And then if it doesn't work, we can pay for it. But definitely a bigger percentage, but not a bigger amount.
Yeah, I think that's kind of been everyone's challenge in the last little bit. And then, yeah, you see those hockey tickets or football tickets sneak into the marketing budget too. And you're like, hey, what is that? No, that's a campaign. So yeah, there's always this little bit of stuff that you have to surprise comes into your marketing budget at one point or another in the year that you have to kind of account for as well. So
I get a monthly update from accounting of what's hitting my budget, and I guard that like a pit bull. And I go to bat like when things are hitting my budget that I don't agree. Okay, that just means less demand gen budget, right? If one example is LinkedIn Sales Navigator licenses was hitting my budget, and only 4 people on my team use it, and I was paying for 28. I'm like, that's a sales cost, not a marketing cost. You know, if that's going to hit my budget, then that's all the less campaigns I can run. And shortly after was taken out of my budget. So, but like Khaled, if we're going to a conference and we're asking subject matter experts to help support us at a conference, then their T&E comes out of my budget because it's part of the overall cost of going or sponsoring an event.
But I like Amy, you're like, you choose. I do that with my 6-year-old, you know. You don't want to wear your coat, that's fine, but you're going to be cold. Which one do you want? And you know, usually it balances out or things. Sometimes they don't, but sometimes they do work in your favor. So we touched upon it a bit, but let's deep dive into which members do you typically include when you're trying to plan for your upcoming year? Finding those allies and getting buy-in from the rest of the company makes it a lot easier when you have to present it in the end. So, Lee, who do you include in your budgeting and planning discussions?
Well, initially, I start with just my team and my peers, and then kind of as a next level up, I go to just one level up, actually, to whom I report. And then we get it really nailed down and finalized there. And then obviously sales, we go to sales because we're driving leads to them and opportunities. So we want to get their buy-in next, especially when it comes to things that are going to allocate dollars out, like attending conferences, et cetera. So the executive team is at the very end. That's at the very last.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I think sales and marketing, you have to be in lockstep. You need their buy-in, not just to be like, hey, this is how many leads we're going to get in, but we want them to be able to, if you're building something, you want them to show it off and to talk about it and for them to get excited about it too. So I think sales, in all things marketing, they have to be your besties in one way, shape, or form. And Amy, who do you normally include in your budget discussions or planning discussions, or both?
There for us, there are 2 things, right? You've got your planning and then your budgeting. We're a very collaborative organization. There are no silos between sales and marketing at HSO, at least in the US. I can't speak for the other countries. And so where I'm in lockstep with our EVP of sales, and we go to market by industry. So each industry is going to have an industry marketing executive who's a subject matter expert that can talk the talk and walk the walk in FinServe or manufacturing. Then you've got your EVP of sales, you've got your industry marketing lead, and you've got me. And we work together, you know, backing out from the goals to figure out what the plan is. And we talk about the key campaigns that we're going to run. Usually there's themes, like maybe it's an interaction migration campaign or a Deltec migration campaign, or maybe it is case management for health and human services. And then our there's a lot of accountability at HSO. Everyone takes responsibility for their part in achieving our goals. So then the industry marketing lead, like Lindy and others that you may know, they build out the marketing plan and they build their bottoms up budget. Meanwhile, I'm working on an overall budget. They're basically going to tell me what they need. They're going to come to me with an ask, and then I will simultaneously, I'm working on the overall budget and trying to decide how much of that 1.6% or 1.8% I'm going to allocate to each industry or service line. And it's not all equal. The first year I did it, when I was the first year and leading this team, I'm like, everyone gets the same percentage or a percentage of their bookings goal. And then I realized that's not always feasible. Some more established verticals don't need as much because they're running on all cylinders and they've got momentum going. Then there's other areas that we want to grow or new areas that we want to pursue proactively. They need more budget because it's a heavier lift to get up and running. So so it's simultaneous, but the marketing leads on our team are empowered to build their plan. And then, and then I take all that and I say, okay, we can do what you're asking of us with the 1.6%, or I negotiate for more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they're really the ones who understand, not that you don't understand, but they're the ones who live the day to day. So they see what the asks are from the subject matter experts and the industry experts and the sales team. So I'm sure they have lists, like we all have lists of nice to haves and nice to put into place for the upcoming year, what they've already promised to people. So I think it's cool that you guys have it separated out by industry. And I think for everyone, even if you don't have it separated out by industry, it's a good reminder of not all initiatives cost the same amount of money either. Not all your kids are your favorites or can be created equally when it comes to that, even though you might tell them that. But it's important to say that some initiatives take more money to get them ramped up off the ground. And I can imagine that some people, it might be harder to swallow, but at least at the end of the year, all boats float, and that's what's important. So on that note, it's time for a commercial break. Speaking of all boats floating and we're talking about money, I want to say a special thank you once again to the Partner Marketing Group. They are a group of experienced marketers who are dedicated to the technology channel. They offer solutions, services, programs designed specifically for customer engagement and conversions. They are specifically grown up in this industry, so their services are tailored to your needs. Learn more about them. Even if you know we're talking a bit about today, you just need a little bit of help here and there, they can help you with custom campaigns and stuff like that. So or any kind of results with your website, you need to do more with less, maybe they can give you a couple tips and tricks from that too. So go visit their website to learn more. Thank you again, the Partner Marketing Group, for supporting us. So now that we're back, we can keep going on to our next question, which is, what areas of marketing do you typically spend the majority of your budget? So is it websites, events, content, advertising? The world is your oyster. Khaled, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you guys do, or where you guys spend your money?
I think the biggest spend is, aside from salaries, is probably events and campaigns. We do spend some on like content development and things like that, but the biggest portions aside from salary are definitely the events and the like campaigns that we run, whether they are through different forums that we have or just like membership in them, or if we push a specific campaign with some ad spend on top. I think all of that factors into it, but with the events, we do try to kind of have some anchoring level of demand gen where we spend on the event and then we spread that follow up and just kind of have that go through the entire quarter it's in, or maybe the entire 6 months. And so we do invest in them quite a bit.
Yeah, and I can imagine it's a good chunk of change to go to these events too. We just flights, hotels, keeping people alive for a couple days while they're out there. It adds up quickly. And Amy, where do you spend? What kind of stuff do you spend on your budget?
Talent for sure is the biggest bucket. Outside of that, and it's different today than it was a few years ago. So before AKA was acquired by HSO, and I owned all the systems that we use to get our jobs done and all the subscriptions. I would say that all like the marketing automation software, the database that we use for ABM, that stuff adds up really quick, that operational stuff. But now that we're part of HSO, that's covered by group or corporate marketing. And so now it's after talent, it's content, video creation, writers, just content. We spend a ton of money on content because we don't do a lot of conferences. We don't do a lot of trade shows. A long time ago, we decided that there just wasn't enough ROI in it for us. They're a huge expense. They're a huge lift. Not that there wasn't any ROI, just not enough. So we backed off events in a big way.
That's interesting how both of you are in the same industry, but depending on what segment you're in or how you're going to target, your strategies differ a fair bit. And I think it comes back to where do you see the best ROI and all that? Because hey, conferences can be fun, but if you're not getting the leads out of it in the end, that it's not so fun at the end of the year when you don't meet your targets. So how much money do you devote to trying new marketing activities? So we know the old faithfuls, but how much wiggle room do you have to be creative or try something new in marketing? Because that's a big piece of it too. So Khaled?
I think like I don't have as much mad money now, probably, but just spending money on like new launches and things like that, that's probably like 40% of the budget. We do spend a lot of time focusing on our existing products, but it kind of depends in the company's life cycle, right? If you're launching into like a new ERP, into cloud platforms, things like that, you're kind of trying to overhaul the brand. It's almost like launching a new company inside an existing one. And so you can keep some of the plates spinning. On the other side, with a lower amount of budget, it's still 60%, which is pretty large. But with new fun creative things, you kind of have to make a bit of a splash. And so that was a big focus the year we licensed subscription management to Microsoft. That's kind of the split that we had. And now with launching into like payments and things like that, you do have to spend some money on a bit of the crazy stuff as well.
And how do you get management to buy into that? I think that's a piece of it. Like, hey, I don't know if this is going to work or not, but I'm going to need 40% of my budget to do so.
Yeah, it's I may be in a slightly different position where I'm just getting buy-in from myself and the CEO essentially, but you do have to show proof points from the industry. Like if you can show some benchmarks, I think that's really wise. If you show what your peers are doing, it's kind of nice having a competitor because you can show what they're doing as well, and that creates a bit of incentive for your team to also follow through and do some of the same things. And then it's also about your track record. I think if you can start out small, I'm not gonna say everyone can go and create like a TV show on day one. I don't have that kind of green light, but if you slowly build up, I'm sure that's kind of something that you can get to, and then just keep tracking it. Just because it's something fun and creative doesn't mean that it's not liable for ROI. You should still show ROI and be transparent about if it didn't work out, why it didn't work out.
I think there's the cost to learning too that people might forget about in there. So I think that's a good point. And Amy, I don't like to call it mad money, but slush fund or percentage of your budget that you do to trying new things.
We're very lean, and I'm kind of skeptical. So for the team members who are on this call, they'll know that I'm going to ask a lot of questions. So I help them build the business case. So let's say it's we should go to a new conference. We should sponsor a new event that we've never. Well, let's build the business case for it. Who's the audience? What competitors are going to be there? What type of topics are on the agenda that correlate with what we're trying to achieve by going to that event? And then building the business case for it. And say it's a new conference, for example, we might actually just go as an attendee the first year to scope it out before we go all in. We're definitely dip our toe in before we go all in. We're not an all-in type of organization. Do a pilot. There's this $50,000 lead gen program we can do with this XYZ company. Okay. We've never done business before with them. Do we know anyone else in this network, right? All these people on this call. Has anyone that we know ever done business with this company before? Get some of their proof points. If not, then agree to do a pilot and test it. So, we did that with Workflow X, for example. Some of you know Workflow X. It's not a small investment. So we did a pilot and then Peter made a good point. You have to give it 6 months. You have to give it a fair try. Otherwise, you're shortchanging yourself. You're not allowing to get real results. And so we did it with one industry. We did it for 6 months. We kept track of everything. We saw great results, and then we expanded our investment with that company. So
no, I think the word pilot also makes it seem less scary that, okay, we know that we have to try it and we know that we have to have the proof points, and we're not just doing anything on a whim or whimsy either. So calling it a pilot, I've seen some good results in the past too when you're trying to get a new idea out the door, but calculated idea. Building that business case really helps as well.
Yeah.
So you've built it, you've created it, you're good with it. So how do you present it to your executive team? How do you sell it in the end? How do you make sure that you're going to get the money that you asked for, or how do you defend the money that you've asked for? So Lee, why don't you pick this one off?
Sure. So we really do a very formalized meeting with our board and chairperson and C-suite. We sit down and we roll out a really nice PowerPoint version. We show videos, etc. And then we always show what's in market too. So this is what our competitors are doing. This is what we need to do to stay relevant and even, position ourselves as a stronger brand than that. And then of course it all comes back to projections and meeting goals, etc. So, we present the plan and this is what we need to do. This is the number of campaigns we need to push out. This is the number of conferences we need to attend to meet these goals, etc.
And if you have to ask for additional budget, what do you show? Is there anything you have to prove to them to be like, hey, can I have that extra $10,000, $20,000, $30,000? Is there something you do differently or special for that?
Well, not just in my current role, but in my roles throughout my career, that has usually only happened asking for additional budget when either the market has changed or our product offering has changed, or something, a channel had become less relevant. Perhaps, we had to do something different. So fortunately, that hasn't happened often. But then also, I'm probably a little fortunate in that a lot of my marketing is affinity marketing through the relationships that we have, partner co-marketing. And so I'm probably not as reliant on as much budget as, say, Amy or Khalid probably has to demand.
But you still have to, I wouldn't put down the partner to partner stuff. I think there's still a lot you have to do there. I'm like, don't shortchange yourself.
Yeah, no, not shortchanging at all.
Okay. I was like, no, there's still a lot of work. Sometimes it's longer work, so you have in the end you're probably spending just as much, if not more, to get them to buy in, or the percentage of where you're spending it lands more in retention how do you keep them as a partner rather than on what you spend to acquire them? So no, I don't. Partners are hard. This is why we have this network, because it's a special bunch. And Khaled, what about you? How do you present it to your executive team, or what do you do differently to get them to say yes?
Yeah, I think it's important to tie it to the plans and the results. So we do like a plan summary for every single activity that we're doing. At the end of the year, we follow kind of a program called GOSPA, which is goals, objectives, strategies, plans, and actions. And so having a plan around everything that you're asking money for, I think really helps, because then you can back up the results. I haven't had too many times where I had to change, honestly. Like the only times where that's happened has been if we're going to like a conference and then we realize, oh, the attendees are actually way higher, so we end up investing in like a party or something like that. Then I'll ask for a bit more budget, but usually I negotiate down my contracts with like the software that we use and things like that, where I get a bit of extra cushion. So I've never had to go above my budget overall, which is very positive. But yeah, I think it's important to also empathize, right? Like no one is saying no to your budget just to kind of be mean or to be a bully. They're saying no because they don't have enough proof. And so you have to put on your sales hat and think, how can I empathize, envision a better future for them, show them and walk them through, because they're not marketing experts. So you have to go back to their mindset, hold their hand through, how is this getting the company to its goals? Why do you have faith in it? What results are you expecting? And what your confidence level is too. Like if you're thinking about new projects, I know the number I gave like sounds a little crazy, but if you're saying, okay, I have like a 90% confidence level in this, then you can spend a bit more time on it and a bit more money. And not every single thing is going to be super bankable, but just being open and transparent about it, communicating and working on it as a partnership, I think helps a lot.
You know, if I could add something to, that's a great point. And it reminds me of something, I didn't weigh in on the last question, but this kind of fits both ways. So obviously salary and conferences and travel are two of the biggest things that hit my budget, but also it's the tools and technology for the marketing department. You know, it's the CRM, it's the licenses for email automation tools, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And as a technology company, you know, we frequently try out new things, you know, so we have a portion of budget set aside. This is what's hot in marketing. This is what people are doing. Let's give this a try. So we're always doing that. And that's a good way when I need to reduce budget to fund another project. You know, it comes back to what Khaled said about reducing licensing costs.
I think we rely a lot on these tools, but sometimes we forget that we can be scrappy too if we have to tighten up our bootstraps a bit. Maybe we don't need everything automated year one. And even though it would be nice to have it automated year one, I think we have that wiggle room of creativity there. And I think the common theme is just be prepared and do your homework and prove that you've calculated this and it's not coming out of thin air when you're building your budgets and when you're planning. If you can prove why you're doing it and how it makes it a lot stronger of a sales pitch when you're in front of the executives. So Amy, take us home. Well, how do you do your final pitch and your final presentation to the executive team, and how would you ask for more money if need be?
That's a good question. I don't know if I would dare. I haven't needed to ask for extra money. It's if you need, you gotta be, like you said earlier in this conversation, you gotta be nimble. So you reduce spending someplace else to fund whatever. We're constantly pivoting. It's not it's not hard fast. You're constantly evaluating what's working, what's not, and reallocating your funds. And hopefully you're doing that quarter by quarter. If not, at least by the end of the year, I've asked my entire team to reflect on 2020, what year are we in? 3, and tell me what worked, what didn't, and what won't you repeat next year. What did you learn this year that you're just not going to repeat? And inevitably they'll come back with stuff. But as far as bringing it home, each member of my team presents their PowerPoint presentation and spreadsheet to me. But then for me, getting approval from executive leadership, they're not worried. They leave it to me to worry about the details of the campaigns we're going to run. They don't micromanage that. They just basically approve the total amount of money. And then each marketing person is then responsible for their portion of the bucket or their bucket in the piece of pie in the overall picture. So for us, it's mostly a spreadsheet exercise. And then there is a PowerPoint template that I have to fill out for our CMO. He has each of the marketing leads in every geo, fill it out. It's like 5 slides and it's high level. What's your revenue target? How many opportunities? It's very mathematical. It's very kind of textbookish. Yeah.
But it's interesting to see, depending on the executive or what the trust or how involved they want to be. Amy, you're like, it's a spreadsheet, like that's your money, you figure it out. You're on the hook if it doesn't work out, whereas others want to know every single detail. So I think I'm going to end this with know your audience as good marketers. And if they're detail oriented, be detail oriented. If you have to be thorough, be thorough, but use that to know how to sell in the end your budget, and make sure you have your homework, cover your bases and show like that you've thought this through, because I know we all have probably too much sometimes. So to keep that in mind. And then I saw a question. I'm like, oh, this doesn't happen often enough, people. They're curious about how many in the audience have set a budget for the year versus just asking for money when they need it. When I was director of marketing, I never had a formal budget. I was always embarrassed thinking I was the only one. But actually now I know many companies that choose to do it on the fly, and some feel that it helps them really build their case for each activity. If anyone else does the on the fly thing, please come off mute, put in the chat. I worked for a company back in the day that did the on the fly thing. It's a little nerve-wracking because I'm a planner. I like to know where my money's coming from, or I'm doing this to support that. And building your case every time, it's kind of fun because you might be able to ask for a lot of money, but at the same time, it doesn't give you the ability to choose what makes more sense down the road, or you can't plan for, okay, is it this or this? It's kind of like on Survivor when it's the auction, like, is this the last item? Like, I don't know, do I spend all my money here or do I wait for the next one? So definitely nerve-wracking. I have much preferred knowing my numbers upfront since then. I don't know, anyone else? Come on, don't be shy. Okay, everyone's going to be shy. It's okay. It's Friday afternoon. I hope you enjoyed this edition. We are trying to cook up a little something special for December before the holiday season begins. So stay tuned. If you're not already following us on LinkedIn or on our email list, please let us know. If you have missed a session, if it's a good excuse or if it's not, doesn't matter. They're all up on our website, so you can watch them. Kind of if like you're in planning season, you want to know more about marketing analytics, go back and watch those chats. They're all up on our website. Any ideas for the new year? We are also in our planning of topics and subjects. So if you have any ideas, something you want us to talk about, something that you're like, man, I wish they would put this on the list, let us know. We are always looking for new ideas. And if you want to be a panelist, we are always looking for people as well. So we have friends, but we can always use more. So on that note, thank you everyone again for supporting us and the channel, and have a great weekend. Bye-bye now.